We are shortly going to go live. We are now live for the webcast, the live webcast for the kickoff of Mission X 2013. Welcome to Mission X webcast from ESA ESTEC here in the Netherlands at Erasmus Center. And I would like to remind all of you who are actually joining us. We have teams from Austria, Belgium, Colombia, the Czech Republic, Denmark, France, Germany, Indonesia, Ireland and Northern Ireland, Italy, Japan, Kazakhstan, the Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, Puerto Rico, Russia, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, and the United Kingdom, as well as the United States. And I'd like to bid a warm welcome also to our NASA colleagues listening in. So, welcome everybody. My name is Shamim. And I would like to introduce you to the person that you've all tuned in to hear and to ask questions. And he was, at this time last year, on the International Space Station. He was our ambassador for Mission X 2012 and also now representing us here for Mission X 2013. Please welcome ESA astronaut André Kuipers.
Thank you very much. It's really nice to be here now. I mean, I was very honored and pleased to do Mission X 2012 from space. We do a lot of exercise in space. It was also nice to know that so many children were active and learned a lot about motion, about movement, exercise, and food. And yeah, it's nice to be here on the ground now and to see what happens on the ground. Now, I was in space last year and did all these things for you and with you, but there is, of course, somebody else who's going to take it over and do the same thing in space from the space station in 2013. So I'd like to introduce you now with a nice video clip of the next European astronaut that's going to do Mission X in space, and that is Luca. So maybe we can start a little video clip from Luca.
Hello everyone and welcome to the European Astronaut Center in Cologne, Germany. This is where astronauts train, working with science, working with their experiments, and this is our classroom where we go to school. Just like in school, we need to be focused for long hours, and so a lot of effort is put into being fit and eating well. So let's go have a look to where astronauts train to stay fit. So this is our PTF, or physical training facilities. In other words, our gym. Here we work on muscle building and muscle toning. You may wonder why an astronaut needs to work so much on muscle building and toning, where in orbit we don't have to lift any weights. Well, that's exactly the reason. Because our body doesn't get to lift any weight in orbit, we lose both the muscle and the tone. So we spend about 6 hours every week, and sometimes more, training in order to get ready to go to orbit. As an astronaut, I wish that I could just switch off gravity while on Earth, but it's not possible. So instead, we train here in the Neutral Buoyancy Facility, or NBF. Underwater, we learn how to move like when we are in space. We stay underwater up to 8 hours, and it's a lot of work and a lot of fatigue. That's why we need to be fit. But astronauts are not the only ones to be fit. You also need to be fit, and you can learn how to train like me when you join Mission X 2013, Train Like an Astronaut. You will learn how to have fun while training, how to distinguish good food, bad food, and have fun at the same time. So join us. Now, physical training is only half the story for being physically fit. The other half is eating well and knowing what to eat. If you join Mission X, you will learn about the food pyramid. You will learn what food is good, what is bad, what is okay to eat in large quantities, and what is not so good. For example, this hamburger may taste good, but if you follow our hamburger activity, you will find out just how much fat there is in it, and why it may not be such a good idea to eat a lot of hamburgers. When you join Mission X 2013 Train Like an Astronaut, you will have fun working out with your friends, you will learn a lot about food and other things, and you can train like an astronaut. Because remember, astronauts are not the only one who need to stay fit. You are the future. You will go to space one day and you need to be fit. So have fun, and I'll see you next time.
Well, thank you, Luca. That was very nice. So you all know now what we're going to do, how important it is to eat well and to do your exercise. If you are in space, You lose bone mass, you lose muscle because you don't use it. So that's why we have to exercise all the time. So train like an astronaut is very important for you on ground as well. Now, of course, you like to see what it is to live on board of the International Space Station. And I can show you now a little film about my period in the International Space Station. This was called the Promise mission. And I did a lot of experiments. We docked cargo ships. We had a lot of activities with the ground. And I'd like to show you now how life is on board the International Space Station. So you launch with the Soyuz spacecraft, you know. So this was the coldest launch ever, very cold, but in space this all doesn't matter, we are well protected. You put on your spacesuit, that is important. If there is no air, for example, if there's a hole in the spacecraft, you have to be protected. So this is the spacecraft that we spacesuit that we really need. You go up with this little elevator all the way to the top of the rocket. So we're sitting up there on top of the rocket, and it's very exciting. It's like a roller coaster. You know you want it, you know it's safe, but still it's exciting to go. And then there's a lot of force. You get 3 times as heavy when you go up to space. And you're on this big rocket. Now and then you get a kick if the second stage goes off and the third stage. And after less than 9 minutes, you are in space. So you are waiting until the final stage of the rocket is burned up, and then all of a sudden you're weightless. Here we're shaking hands, so we are happy everything went well and we are in space. So we are floating around the planet with 8 kilometers a second, and then after 2 days we slowly approach the space station and we dock to the space station. So here you see it coming, and this is what we see on our screens, and slowly you get to the space station, and then you can open the hatch and float inside. This is a very nice moment to see your colleagues, and then we are with 6 people in the space station. So you fly up there with 3, and there are 3 more. You look around, and it's a big space station. It's as big as a big airplane inside, and it's 80 by 100 kilometers. Of course, we have to work there. We do a lot of experiments. We do ultrasound and medical experiments, for example. We have big freezers for samples, biological samples. We work with glove boxes. We take measurements of what's in the air, what's in the water. This is the way we measure our weight, for example, because you don't have a scale. A lot of different experiments, and I did these experiments in the different modules. Sometimes in the Russian module, sometimes in the Japanese module, or in our Columbus, our European module. This is in the Columbus module. Some experiments are pretty complex and difficult, and you are busy a whole day with one experiment. Some are very easy. Sometimes you do it alone, sometimes you do it with others. We had experiments with a lot of schools. So a lot of schools could also do the experiments that we did on the ground. I did those kind of experiments with fluids, with plants, with foam, and it's very nice to do that together with a lot of schools all over the world. You see there's no up and down, so you can work on the ceiling, you can work upside down, and we have to exercise, of course. Every day, 2 hours, 2.5 hours for exercise, because otherwise you get too weak. So it's important to stimulate your bones and your muscles. We had some visitors. In this case, this was the ATV-3, for example, and the European cargo ship. That's very big. It's like a double-decker, London double-decker bus, so it's pretty big. And so that's very important because it brings all kind of new equipment, but it also brings the drawings of our children, but also food, clothing. This is how it looks like inside. So it's a big cargo ship with a lot of equipment. You see that we're wearing masks. That is just for safety, to make sure that we don't get anything in our eyes that is floating around there. It's full of equipment, and after that we use it for garbage. So things we don't use anymore, then we take that into the cargo ship, and then in the end it burns up. We had a very special visitor, and that was the first commercial spacecraft. This is the Dragon, and it's launched, and it hangs 10 meters off the space station. You grab it with the robotic arm, and then with the robotic arm you can move it around and attach it to the space station. And then you have an extra module. So this was very interesting because it was never done before. So everybody was very excited to see this happen. And here we see the Dragon attached to the space station. And then you can get in. So you open the door and you have also cargo there. Now the interesting thing of this spaceship is that it has a heat shield. So if you want to bring something back to the planet, you can put it in this cargo ship and then it comes down. You see, eating is not so easy. Floating is. It's very nice to play Superman or Spider-Man, and floating is very nice. You feel like a sea lion on the water, and look what you can do with fluids. Swimming has no use in space. And playing soccer is very easy. So it was a great experience. I was 193 days in space with my American and Russian colleagues. And of course, one day you have to go back. So you say goodbye, you go back into your spacecraft, and then the most exciting part of the mission starts. This is not the launch, this is the return, the re-entry to the atmosphere. Because you still go very fast, and you brake like a duck on the water, you brake in the atmosphere, and it becomes very hot, and therefore you need a heat shield. And then at 10 kilometers altitude, the parachute opens, and then you hang on the parachute for about 15 minutes, and you land in the steppes of Kazakhstan. This is, if you've been Beatles, it's like a bit of a car accident. So it's a pretty hard hit, and but it's very safe. The capsule is made for that, and we are in special seats. And then, of course, they take you out, and then that is interesting. If they take you out, it feels like you're very weak. You cannot walk anymore. You get very dizzy. If you turn your head, it looks like the whole world is hanging on a string and follows behind. And so there's, it's very strange to be back on Earth, and it takes a while to recover. Even though we did a lot of exercise. So you see how important it is to do a lot of exercise and to train in order to stay in shape. You see, we have been in maybe you can say in bed for half a year. We don't use our muscles, and then you get very weak. So train like an astronaut is very important in order to stay in good shape. And well, I hope you liked the video, and I think it was a very nice way to show what we all do on board in, with experiments and all the tasks that we're going to do.
Okay. We're going to take some questions now, and I think we're going to start with maybe a tweet from you, Andre.
Okay, sounds good. We have a lot of questions from all over the world. Let's see. I have the first question here. Why is the inside of the Soyuz so large you need a stick to reach the controls? Now that's a very interesting question. I don't know if you saw it, but sometimes the commander who sits in the center, he needs a stick because the Soyuz is very tight. The two on the left and right, they are very close to the dashboard. It's very tight for us. And but the commander is a bit more, say, towards the bottom, towards the side of the capsule, and therefore he is too far away to reach it with his hands. Especially when all the belts are on, he cannot reach it with his hands, and therefore he has a stick to push the buttons. So that is that's the reason for that. Okay. Question from the audience.
Do you like to smell in the space?
If I like to smell in space, now well, that's interesting. There are different kinds of smell. First of all, in the beginning, astronauts don't smell so well because they are a bit sick, and then they have the fluid goes in their head, and they feel like they have a bit of the flu. So in the beginning, they don't smell so well. But I remember that when I came to the space station the first time, I came into an old part, and it smelled a bit like warm metal, a bit oily, like a machine room. The second time I arrived in the space station, I docked to a brand new module, and that smelled like a new car. So that was very different. And what's interesting, if there is a spacecraft docking to the space station, and you open the hatch, that's where we call the smell of space. There's some kind of metallic smell that comes off the hatch, the opening that has been outside in space, and that has a specific smell, the smell of space we call that. Okay, I take the next one. The next one this comes from Austria, from Saskia Rauger. And the astronauts have to train many years before they can fly to space. What is the most important part or period of the training, so that you finally succeed to fly into space? Does it happen that astronauts give up? Well, astronauts do not give up. If you want to become an astronaut, you be very motivated. And once you're in, you will never give up. Okay, something might happen. You might have an accident. So some people fly later because they break something, for example. That happens, but they will never give up. The most important or the most difficult things for me was, for example, learning Russian. Because you better learn Russian when you are young like you are here, because then it goes fast. If you're older, it's very hard to learn a language. Also difficult was to work with the robotic arm, and this is very interesting device, but it takes some time before you master that. So there were some difficult parts, but it was all very interesting, and I really liked the training. The road to space was almost as interesting as the flight into space itself. Another question from the audience.
Okay, we have a question here from Noordwijkse School.
What does it feel like to float around the weightless?
It feels like swimming. If you are in the pool and you hang in the water without swimming, you just hang loose, maybe a bit underwater, not too long of course, then it feels a bit like being weightless. You don't feel any pressure points. Your legs are not standing on something, you have nothing in your hands, it's just floating. Just floating in the water feels a bit like floating in weightlessness. So it's very nice. In the beginning, it's not so nice. People get space sick, some kind of motion sickness, seasickness. But after a while, you know how to float, not too fast, and you can only with one finger push. It's enough to move around, and you become very good in it, and it's very pleasant. I would love to do that every day. Okay, another question. This one is from Maya from the UK. What were the views in space like, and what experiments did you do? Well, the views were fantastic, and I did a lot of experiments. Now, the views were really beautiful. If you look straight down to the Earth, it's very interesting. There's a lot of colors. The Bahamas have very nice turquoise colors. The Australian outback is very interesting. Red desert with interesting shapes and salt lakes. And at night, the Earth is maybe even more beautiful because you see a lot of city lights, but you see lightning of thunderstorms every night. We saw the northern and southern lights. They're very impressive. Sometimes we saw even meteors going into the atmosphere below us. So it was beautiful to see our planet. It also makes you feel that the Earth is very fragile, a very thin atmosphere, and we go around the whole planet in 1.5 hours. So you see how limited and fragile the planet is. And then, what I liked most is beside the view, say the floating on board and playing with microgravity. So it was a very interesting and pleasant experience.
Okay.
I'm Marissa and I'm from Gymnasium Calvinium. How long can you survive with the food on board of the ISS, and do you like the food?
Yeah, the food. I mean, in the past people thought that astronauts could only eat from tubes, but you can actually eat. You can eat upside down. If you stand on your head, you can also eat because your esophagus pushes the food down, and so. But you can eat everything, but it should not be crumbly. It should not be. If it crumbles, you get a big cloud of crumbs. So you don't want that. You have to be careful with fluids. Little droplets go everywhere. So sometimes we have to clean the ceiling also and the walls in the space station. So the food is a bit sticky. It looks a bit like cat food now and then. You know, you have the cans and you have plastic food, plastic bags, and you put water with it, and then you cut it open, and then you can take it out with your spoon. So you can play. We saw it already a little bit in the film. You can play with your food. You should not do this at home, but in space you can play with your food because it floats nicely. You can take it out of the air. So that's nice. So you have to be careful with the food. The food was American food, Russian food, we had European food, we had some Japanese food. So from all over the world we had, food products. And I liked it actually. There was a lot of choice, a lot of different things. Sometimes we even got fresh fruit. If there was a Russian Progress cargo ship coming, there was always fresh fruit on board. And that was very nice. So most of the time was cans and plastic bags, but sometimes it was even fresh. Yes, I'll take the next one. And this comes, I think, from the Instituto Comprensivo di Nani, the team Starblazers. Well, okay. What personal belongings did you have with you on your mission? Now, it's very expensive to bring things to space. And you can imagine with a rocket, it takes a lot of money. So we are limited to 1.5 kilos. That's all we can bring. So I think if you go on holiday, you have a lot more in your suitcase. We bring 1.5 kilos, but all the other stuff that we need, like my toothbrush or my clothes and the food and all the things, that is already sent up with cargo ships. So you bring 1.5 kilos, and mostly I brought things to fly, like from family and friends and for my children. I brought special things, and so more like souvenirs. That's what I brought up. All the other things that you really need is already up there, and you share that with the other astronauts.
I'm Noor, and I'm from the Noordwijk School. What is the first thing you wanted to do when you returned to Earth?
That's a nice question. If you go to space, you realize that you can never take a real shower because there is no running water. We don't have a tap, we don't have a shower. So for more than half a year, you wash yourself with wet baby towels. You know, so astronauts wash themselves with baby towels. And I thought always, oh, it would be so nice to have a nice warm shower when I come back. But if you come back, you feel very weak. So you have to, you almost faint when you come back, and you're a bit dizzy and you can hardly walk. So it was actually dangerous to take a shower when I came back because you can slip and you can fall. So maybe it was not such a good idea. And but that was what I wanted most. But it actually in the end I thought, well, maybe not a good idea. I better wait a bit. Okay, the next one. How much younger is André Kuipers after his flight in space? So this is a very a physics question, because I mean, if you go really, really, really fast, then time goes slower. This is very difficult to explain. But of course, with the speed I went, it probably worked. So maybe I got 1 picosecond less old than the people on Earth. So it's not so much. Yeah, I take another one. Let's see. Oh, the answer. There's an answer, by the way, here. Okay, so this is 0.005 seconds. Okay, well, that's actually a lot. Okay, I take the next question. Let's see. From Sweden, what muscles do you have to train the most? Well, it's mostly what we train for is actually to stimulate the bones, because if I'm standing here and if you're sitting, standing, there's always a force on the bones. So it's mostly that we call it the weight-bearing bones, your heels, your hips, and the lower back. These bones, they lose density if you are in weightless condition, if you float. Because bone is living tissue. If you don't use it, the cells in the bone say, oh, we don't need it. They start to break down the bone. And you don't want that. So you have to tell the bone, you are needed. So that's why we do exercises that put pressure on these particular bones. So that means that you have to do the squats. Yeah, you have to do the deadlifts and the heel raises. So all kind of exercises that put pressure on the hips, on the lower back, on the heels, and this way we try to prevent the bone loss. So we did a lot of different muscle training, and one muscle is very important to train. That's the heart muscle. So that's why we had to do a lot of bicycling and the running, also just to get your condition, to improve your condition, and to stimulate the heart muscle to pump, because your heart is also a muscle, and if you don't do sports, also the heart muscle gets weaker. So very important to do that as well.
My name is Francois and I'm from Blijberg School. Can you play games in the ISS like chess, frisbee and other games?
If we can play games in the ISS, yes, we can. We don't have much time for that, and if we have free time, we rather look outside. But you can play games. Now, chess a normal chess would be interesting, because all these pieces would float around. But, of course, you could bring up a magnetic chess playing, like you have sometimes to play in the car, for example. With magnetic pieces, you could do that. So you can play chess. Yeah, maybe people have been playing chess in space. I would not be surprised. Okay, one from Twitter again, from Bucharest. Interesting. How many calories do you need for a day in zero gravity? More than on Earth? Okay, this is from School 195 in Bucharest. Well, it depends a bit. If you don't do much, then you need less calories. But if you would use a lot of exercise like we did, we might even use more than we need on ground. And we were three on the American and European side. We were three big guys. We did a lot of exercise, so we needed something like 3,000 calories to stay in shape. So we had even issues that we were wondering if we had enough food. So it depends a bit on the person, of course, and on the amount of exercise that you do. But since we have to train 2.5 hours per day, we needed a lot of calories. Yeah, another one. Okay, this is from Italy, Team SOS Planet Earth. And the question is, what is it like to eat space food? It's fun. Eating in space is fun, and you can make nice. We saw it already in the film. You can let your food float. You can have nice bubbles of drink from your orange juice, and you can take it out of the air, drink it out of the air. So you can combine it. I had a little, say, a bubble of milk and a bubble of orange juice. You can make some mix of it. So that's fun, and nice colors. And you can throw the food to each other. Well, we should not do that at home, but in space it's nice. If you have a little piece of cheese, for example, you just let it float to your colleagues, and then they take it out of the air, and that's of course fun. So it's very nice to eat food in space. And another one, what did I miss most on Earth? Well, you almost have everything on board. So I felt at home. I really lived there at home. You have your sports, you have your entertainment, you can look outside, you can call home, you can do your email, you have everything. But one thing you don't have, and that is nature. So you don't have a nice garden, you don't have birds, you don't have a rain shower and sunlight, sunshine after that. So this is what I missed most. So the, say, plants and animal sounds, you don't have that in space. So maybe we can change that in the future. We have a little forest in a module as well.
Hello, I'm Zeynep Dahli and I'm from Kolfheim-Vreewijk. Since there is no gravity in space, do you launch yourself when you sneeze?
Ah, that's a nice one. Well, in space we are weightless, so we don't have weight. But there is, of course, action and reaction. If you put a force on something, it moves around. Actually, if you would have a pure condition that you're really free floating, and then you sneeze and keep your head still, then indeed you would move. Yes, I think you would do that. You have a lot of mass, of course, in your body, so it takes a lot of force. But there is a lot of speed. If you sneeze, it's something like hurricane speed in your inside if it comes out. So there's a lot of energy in there. So that would be an interesting experiment. Maybe you can do it yourself one day. Okay, let's see, from Caramel. Hi Andre, what advice would you give Luca before he leaves for the ISS? Well, I talked with Luca when I came back, especially for this purpose, to tell him things and discuss things that you don't learn. And one of the things was, for example, bring a belt. I didn't have a belt, and you think, well, you won't need a belt, but everything floats, so your shirt is floating. So every time I was putting my shirt back in my trousers because it was floating out, and so a simple thing like a belt was one of the things that I advised him to bring up. And okay, another one. This is from Portugal. The second time you went to space, did it feel like your first time? The launch, yes, and that's the advantage. If you go for a second time, it feels more or less familiar. You know what's coming. But when I came into the space station, it was much bigger. The space station was twice as big. And it had it had the Columbus module from ESA, but also the cupola, and that was of course very nice to have this watchtower, and I could see so much more of the Earth and from the whole space station as well. So that was very pleasant. So it was much bigger than I remembered, of course. But for the rest, there were still some things that I put on the wall on my first flight that were still there, and I had one nice experience that one of the cosmonauts that came later was the commander of my first Soyuz. So we had both been in space at the same time before. So it was very nice.
We have a question here from a birthday boy, so this is very special.
Does food spill out of your mouth when you eat with your mouth open?
Well, congratulations with your birthday. It's very nice to have it on this day and share it with us. Yes, because everything is floating, and so it doesn't even stay in your tongue if you're not careful. So if you talk with open mouth, it will for sure, pieces will come out. Yes, so not advisable. Okay, this one is from Milano, or near Milano. From Sofia, what did you dream when you were a child? Well, when I was 12, my grandmother came with science fiction books. And I thought, wow, this is great. And it was about astronauts and rockets and other planets. And I thought, this is great. So from then on, I dreamt about it. And I thought, well, this is only something for American test pilots. And they do something in Russia as well. But it came closer and closer, and a lot of European countries joined forces, and the European Space Agency started. So, and then it became much more reality. But I dreamt of going to space since I was 12, more or less. Yes. Does the novelty of gravity ever wear off? Of no gravity? Yeah. Well, this is. Of course, after a while, if you float into the space station, after a while it becomes more or less normal. But every day, actually, I enjoyed it. It was especially at night when I got out of my cabin and I floated through, say, more or less dark space station. It was very nice feeling. So I enjoyed it every day. So it stayed, in that sense, it stayed new, but also because I knew I was going back, and then I was bound to Earth forever. So then you enjoy it even more. So so maybe I can answer no. The novelty of weightlessness did not wear off.
My name is Jenny and my school is the Bleiburg. Did you ever build a rocket yourself when you were smaller?
Well, water rockets. And not a real one with real explosive materials. This can be done, but you have to be very careful, and only when adults are there and present. And it's because it's of course dangerous. Rockets are fire and explosions, and so you have to be very careful with that. But water rockets is a very interesting thing. So I did that as a kid. Yeah, so you had these competitions, how far and how high the rocket could go. So that was always very nice to do. Yeah. Another one from Bucharest in Romania. Is the appetite in space similar to the one on ground? Well, that is interesting, because in the beginning, astronauts suffer. Yeah, well, you can say suffer from fluid shift. A lot of the fluid is in the lower part of our bodies that moves up, and it gets into to your head. You can measure it. The skin is getting thicker, but you also get more swollen, swollen nose, and it feels a bit like having a cold. And therefore, in the beginning, astronauts smell less and they taste less. So there is a tendency of people liking more spicy food. And there's a lot of choice on board, so we have also some spicy food on board. So there might be a difference in taste, but there's a lot of variation. and a lot of new tastes. So it's hard to say how that changed. But there seems to be a tendency for spicy food. From the National Space Center, how important is it to study science and maths to be an astronaut? Well, I would say very important. All the astronauts have, say, a background in science, technology, piloting, and what's important is that in space you have to do a lot of experiments for scientists from all over the world. And you have to do operational tasks that are very technical. You have to do repairs and maintenance. So it's important that you're interested in science and technology, and that you understand what the scientists and the experimenters, what they want. So therefore they want you to have a background in science, technology, piloting yourself, so you know what they are talking about, and that it's easier for you to understand and to perform that. And science and technology is fun. It's really interesting to see how the world works, how things work, why things are like they are, and therefore, it's also the fact that astronauts are very motivated and interested in science. They're curious. That's an important factor, and you need that to become an astronaut. But for everybody, this is big fun. Be curious, and then you learn how the Earth is working, the planet, and everything around you, and you will enjoy that.
I have another question here from a student who wants to ask it in Dutch, and we will translate it. So I will just let him go ahead.
Okay.
André Kuipers, heb jij wel eens zo'n moment gehad dat je naar de aarde keek, dat je dacht, wow, wat mooi?
Yeah, if I had moments that when I looked at Earth that I was in awe, that I thought, wow, this is beautiful. Well, I can tell you every day. Every day when I floated into the cupola, so this watchtower, I came in, and then the Earth gets into your field of vision, and yeah, you are in awe. It's just amazing. It's just overwhelming, and it's a lot of beautiful colors. But also you feel how limited the planet is, and there's only one, and that is a very strange feeling. You see this planet, you see that it's limited, you see that it's fragile, and you see all the history, except for space travel, of course, is there in a very thin layer. 10 kilometers air, 10 kilometers sea, that's all life, all history, it's all there. And that's the only place we have. And I looked around, I didn't see another one. So we only have one planet, only our Earth, and we have to be very careful with that. So on one side, it's very beautiful and very impressive. And at the same time, it feels like a very fragile living cell with some kind of fluorescent membrane around it, and it makes you feel a bit worried about the planet. So you have to be very careful with it. And but every day, I enjoyed our planet.
If you take the next 3 tweets, then we'll go back to the audience.
Okay, very good. All right, Esther Polaris. What is the best thing and the worst of being out in space? The best thing is actually 3. It's always very hard to choose. Playing with things that float, that's very, very nice. The floating itself, very pleasant and comfortable. And of course the view of the planet itself. So these are 3 things that are all 3 very important. The least interesting or unpleasant is the fact that that you live in a glass house. Everything you do, there's cameras on it, and if you do an experiment, and if you make a mistake, or if you always have to think, there's people watching. So luckily we have our own cabins, so we can close the doors and get into our own cabins and listen to some music and be on our own. So luckily we have that. But this is always something in the back of your mind, that there is that you live in a glass house. But for the rest, life was very nice up there. And I wouldn't mind to go back. So the next one, would you be able to make fire in the space station? If so, what direction would the flame have? Well, this is interesting, because what is a flame? A flame is hot and glowing particles that go up, because On ground, hot, warm things go up. On the ceiling, the temperature of the air is higher than on the bottom. You can sometimes feel this in your own room if you put your hand on the ceiling, and then on the floor you can feel already the difference. Warm goes up, warm water goes up, cold water, warm air, cold air. So a flame is a red flame or an orange flame because it goes up. Now in space there is no up and down. So it cannot go up. So what you see, a flame in space, you can have fire in space, and we do experiments with that. And you see that it is a bluish circle, a bluish half hemisphere of blue fire around, say, the burning point. So it looks totally different. So you can have fire in space, and we are very, very afraid of that, of course. We don't want fire in our space station, so we train a lot. But it will not look like flames going up because there is no up. So it will look more like bluish light around burning cables or something like that. So we have to be careful with fire, like here on Earth, but it looks different. Yeah. Okay, and one from Portugal, Nuno. Do you think we will have an ESA astronaut going to Mars with the new ATV Orion, etc., with new spaceships? Yes, I don't know when, but yes, for sure. And I'm pretty sure there will be astronauts from all the different countries one day going to space, be it to the moon, be it to the space station, be it to Mars. We are only at the beginning of spaceflight. And spaceflight will continue, and Europe will participate, all the different countries. So one day, there will be people on Mars. One day there will be Europeans on Mars, and it will be people from all kinds of backgrounds, men, women, engineers, scientists, explorers in all kinds of the fields. And it's a big adventure. And there's an expression that we are standing with our toes in the water. So far, this is where we are in near Earth orbit. We're standing with our toes in the water, and there is an ocean to discover. And it's all up to you to continue and go out there and make it happen.
I'm Stanley from Calvin Vreewijk. What can we do at school to stimulate curiosity about space?
Well, what you can do, of course you can tell your teachers, because you probably know more about space than your teachers. That's always nice. So you can see a lot on television. There's a lot of nice books, encyclopedia. There's a lot of information on spaceflight, and I think it's up to the students to teach their teachers what is all around and what you can all find and do there. It's very important for society in general that people go into science and technology, because that's what brings the world further. All the new inventions, new materials, new technology, new ways of communication and navigation, new, more effective ways to produce food, to have cleaner engines, all these things is all based on science and technology. So that's why it's important that schools do a lot to make clear to the children to see how much fun it is. It's very interesting to see how something works, and how certain food products are made, and what we do in space. Because we're talking now about the space station. This is human space flight, and we do a lot of interesting experiments there. But we also have other kinds of space flight. We have the Earth observation. We do a lot of we watch the planet, and we can see air pollution. We can see differences in ice formation. We can see diseases in crops. Of course, we have navigation satellites. We have communication. So space is used all the time. Everybody who comes here with a navigation device uses satellites. If you see something from elsewhere in the world, from Asia, from the Americas, it goes by satellite. The weather forecast, it's satellite. It's all space flight. So space flight is in our daily life already, and we will continue. We are curious. We want to know what the universe is like, so we get more and more. We send probes. We send probes to the planets, to the moons, but also we look far out with great things like the Hubble Space Telescope, and new telescopes like that. And we look for planets near other stars. And more we learn about the universe and about our own planet and about how a lot of things on Earth work without the effect of gravity. So spaceflight is so broad and so many fields of science are involved that it's absolutely worthwhile for schools to look into that.
We have a question here from 2 children, so I'll start here.
How did you become an astronaut?
To become an astronaut, you have to apply. Very simple. So you need, of course, your background. So that means that you have to have, say, a technical study or a scientific study, so university, or become a pilot. And from there, you can apply. So all the astronauts have a certain background. It can be a scientist, all kind of different ones. It can be a chemist. One of my colleagues, Don Pettit, was a chemist. It can be an engineer. My commander was an engineer. I'm a medical doctor. My other commander was a pilot. So you have all kind of different backgrounds. So you have to do your best at school. So after that you go and study something you really like. Something can be anything. Can be biology, can be electrical engineering, whatever. And from there you have to apply with, depends on your country, of course, with NASA, with JAXA in Japan, or with the European Space Agency, or in Russia. And then you have a very tough selection process, but it's not impossible. I'm standing here, and I thought, oh, I'll try it, and maybe not, but at least I try. So you have to do something that you like, because if you like something, you're probably good in it as well. And from there, you can try to become an astronaut. And maybe at the moment, every 10 years, every 15 years, there are selections here in Europe. So you have plenty of time, and you can absolutely, I would advise you to participate. You have to be in good health, but you can have glasses. I have contact lenses, so you can have glasses. You don't have to be perfect in sports. You don't have time for that, but you should be in good shape. You should be in a good condition, but you don't have to be a top athlete or something. So a lot of people have a good chance. So study hard and stay healthy.
Here's another question.
Can you see the northern light from space? So yes, how it's look?
The northern light?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I was lucky because every 11 years the sun, the magnetic field of the sun changes. And that means that there is all of a sudden a lot of activity of the sun, and it throws out a lot of material. So electrical particles and charged particles. And this is the solar wind, and that goes also to the Earth. But the Earth has a magnetic field. That's why our compasses work. So these particles are directed by the magnetic fields, and they come close to the atmosphere at 100 kilometers altitude. And there it reacts with the atmosphere, with the molecules of the air. Yeah, and that you see as northern and southern light. That is at 100 kilometers. So the light, if you see it, it's like moving greenish carpets. If you see that, that's at 100 kilometers. We are at 400 kilometers. With other words, you see it below you. So you come, you fly, and you come, say, from California, and then you go to Canada, and then you see, all of a sudden, you see this greenish colors under you, and then you fly over it. It's beautiful. You fly over the northern light. Then you go to the Atlantic Ocean, it disappears again, and it becomes just dark. And then you come to the Indian Ocean, you approach Australia and the South Pole, and there you see it again, because it's on the other side of the planet, you see it again. And then again you fly over this moving colors under you. It's really beautiful. Sometimes we didn't see it for weeks, and then again there's a whole bunch of particles from the sun coming, and then you see it again. So the northern and southern lights are beautiful from space. Okay, one from Twitter again, from Spain. Have you ever been in a tight corner? Have you felt afraid? Well, actually, we had two things that didn't go well. Once there was a short circuit of one of the solar panels. So we lost some power, but luckily we could recover that. But that's what we train for. So a lot of the training is because of these kind of problems. What you have to do if you lose a part of your power. So we could cover that. The other one had to do with space debris. As you know, there's a lot of satellites in space and pieces of rockets, and some are uncontrollable, and we don't control them, and they're just circling there, and you don't want to hit them. So everything that is bigger than 10 centimeters is followed by radar, and so we can have a debris avoidance maneuver. So the space station goes a bit to the side, a bit left to the right. But one time there was an old satellite, and they could not predict the orbit, and they said, well, just to be safe, close all the hatches in the whole space station, go to your Soyuz, and we probably, it's okay, but you never know. And if it hits, then at least we are safe. So safety first, that's very important in space flight, of course, always, of course. So luckily we were not hit, but that was a moment that we were thinking, okay, so if something happens, we might have to go back quickly because the space station has a hole, and we would be in danger. So that's why we went in the Soyuz. So that was we were not afraid, but we were ready to react quickly. Yes. Okay, let's see. Another one. When landing, did you hurt yourself? Well, a little bit. Especially on the first one, the problem is you sit in your Soyuz seat. It's a very good seat, and you have a seat liner that is shaped according to your body. So you have a spring behind the chair, so that dampens a bit the hit on the ground. So you are well protected, but still it comes a bit unexpected. So you're sitting there under the parachute, and you wait, and you don't now, and all of a sudden you hit the ground. And on the first landing, I hit my chin to the ring of the helmet. That was the only thing. For the second landing, it was okay. We fell over. It feels like a car accident, I would imagine. And so we fell over, but then we came right up again. So actually, we were well prepared. So I didn't hurt myself the second time. Okay. What happens if you are sick in space? Now, that can happen, of course. We have a small hospital on board. If somebody has a heart attack, we can do something. We have equipment to help somebody breathe. We can even pull a tooth if you want. We have a scalpel if you have to do an operation. Most of the time, we had only minor cuts. If you work behind equipment, you might have a little scratch. If you hit your head against one of the hatches, if you float too fast. But if you get, say, a disease, bacterial infection or something, we have a lot of medication on board. So we can use a lot of different things. If you have an ear infection or an eye infection or stomach or whatever, we have a lot of medication on board. If it really gets serious, we might consider to bring the patient down. So we have, of course, help from the ground. There's a lot of people on the ground that make this all happen. Also medical doctors and the biomedical engineers, for example. So they help you. So we can have cameras. We point the cameras. If you have a skin rash, for example, you can show this to the people on ground, and they can help you with the diagnosis and say what you have to do. So you work a lot with the people in the flight control centers. And and if really needed, you might have to bring somebody down. And luckily, astronauts are very healthy, so it doesn't happen a lot. But in the past, we had somebody with some infection that came down. But for the rest, everything is pretty okay. So small bruises and some cuts here and there, and that's it.
Andre will be able to take at least 3 more questions from Twitter before we go to the closeout, so I'll leave it to you.
Very good. Okay. My dream is to be a pilot or an astronaut when I grow up. What dreams have you got left? Well, when I was young, I wanted to be an archaeologist and a journalist, and So I had a lot of different dreams as well. What I still like to do now is to visit a lot of places. The Earth is beautiful, so if you see the Earth from space, there's a lot of things that you would like to visit, and so that's one thing. And I think it's very important to tell the story and to stimulate young people to go into science technology and to tell how to show how interesting space is, but also to make clear to people how beautiful our planet is, but also how limited. The jungles and the rainforests are not endless. There's not an endless amount of fish. We have to be careful with our environment. So this is something I like to express. So I have a lot of interesting things to do. And I would also dream of seeing humans on Mars. So maybe one of the 15,000 children that are now involved in this Mission X 2030 event, maybe one of them once walks on Mars, and I would love to see that. So maybe that is one of my dreams. Okay, another one. What types of exercises did you do in space? Or favorite exercise? We had to run, we had to bike, and we had to do this weightlifting in weightless conditions. So put force on your legs. But I think I liked the running most. I could see a movie in between, so I was running and watching a movie at the same time. So that was fun. The bicycling was very tiring. It was very hard to bicycle because on ground you use gravity. If you go down, and in space you have to pull up as well because there's no up and down. So I think bicycling in space was much more difficult than on ground. Another one. Dear Andre, what type of experiments did you do in space? Or just what's it like living in space generally? We had our free time. We worked worked all day, Monday to Friday, and also Saturday. Saturdays we were cleaning the space station. I did experiments in all kind of different fields. Biological experiments, experiments with radiation. We worked with robots. We did experiments with fluids. There were experiments with combustion, with fire. We did experiments in the medical field, of course. So a lot of different ones, and 55 in total. Some very easy, some pretty complex. So a lot of different things. It was very nice to do that because you talk with Tokyo, and then you were talking with Moscow, and then with Huntsville. So a lot of different people that you had contact with. And of course we have our own European Flight Control Center in Munich, and you talk with some colleagues, people you know. So that's always very nice. So that was doing the experiments very nice, and living while your free time, you could do what you want, float around, play with things that float, look out. Call home, send some tweets out, so a lot of different things. I would say the last one. How does it feel when you come back from space? Can you walk? And does the normal food on Earth taste weird? When you come back from space, you don't feel well. And you cannot move your legs. You stumble. You fall if you want to raise your feet. You get very dizzy because your blood pressure reflexes are not working so well. So you have the tendency to faint. You see, astronauts are very pale, and it's hard to walk. You can faint, and you get very dizzy. So if you move your head, then you get it looks like the whole world is tumbling. And that's not very pleasant. So the first days back on ground are not very nice. And then the food, that was actually nice to have some nice food. I remember that we flew from Kazakhstan to the United States, and we had a stopover in Scotland. And there they brought some nice Indian food on board, and that tasted very good. So it was very pleasant. So it was nice to have, say, a real meal on a plate and eat some real food. So it was not weird at all. Okay.
If you want to do the Mission X, go
Okay, let's do that now. I think time-wise, let's see how far. Oh yes, it's almost 4 o'clock. So this is a nice moment. It was. It's great to start this event, Mission X 2013. It's great. So many children will learn much more about how important exercise and good food is. And 15,000 children are connected now. We're in all these different countries. So this is a great moment. Great way to start. My colleague Luca will be active from space, and I will follow this from the ground. And I would like to start with you to open it, and you know what to say. So I will count down, and then you can all shout it out, not scream, shout. And make it clear with all the others, and this way we can start our fantastic Mission X 2013, Train Like an Astronaut. So I count down. You ready? Yeah. Okay. 3, 2, 1, go Mission X!